What was the Roman Empire is divided up among various barbarian kingdoms. The Eastern Roman Empire continues to exist, and that part of the Mediterranean world continues to trade with the Middle East and Asia. And after around 600 AD, a series of Arabic empires and Turkish empires who are imbued by the spirit of new religion, Islam, that comes out of the Arabian Peninsula around that time, they begin to rise, and they help to continue and sustain the trade between Asia and the Mediterranean world, which is so important to the ancient economy. And in those empires, you'll see the transfer of ideas starting to happen that are going to sustain trade and are going to be very important for the future development of the world economy. But those ideas are not in Western Europe yet. Western Europe is still a backward, divided part of the world. It's only around 900 AD, in fact, that part of the world starts to recover from the traumatic collapse of the Roman Empire. The economy starts to function a little bit more effectively. The state formations become a bit more centralized. The nobles become a bit wealthier. And so what do they decide to do? They decide to go on a religious crusade. The Crusades, as we know them, an attempt to retake the Christian Holy Lands as they see them around Jerusalem, which creates all sorts of dynamics that are destructive, but also creates some constructive ones as well, because they finally bring Western Europe back in touch with the rest of the world, so ideas and goods can start to flow again. The Crusades have political consequences that continue in some ways to this day, but the economic consequences are, if anything, even bigger. One of the things they do is introduce the Western European world to a whole array of products that by that point were important in the Middle East and in Asia, but as I said, had not been present in Western Europe since the fall of the Roman Empire, and in some cases had simply not been present before. And some of these products, some of these commodities are very important today, and they're going to be important as we move forward in this course. So things like cotton and sugar, and both of those are originally Arabic words that make their way into English. But also, more important, in fact, perhaps than the commodities themselves, are some of the concepts that go with them. And these are concepts which transform the Western European idea of the economy. Now, the Western European idea of the economy since the fall of Rome had been shaped by the feudal system and the Catholic Church as well. In those long, long centuries, the Western European economy had essentially existed in a sort of survival or subsistence mode, and it had not been able to, had not even really attempted to sustain a lot of major growth, technological transformation, or large-scale trade, and there are many reasons for that. But the concepts that come in are going to change all of that. They're going to push against the traditional boundaries that have been set by the Catholic Church. They're going to establish new sources of power other than the feudal nobility and the kings who at least ostensibly rule over them and try to control them. And they're going to ultimately help move European economies away from pure subsistence. They're going to support all kinds of trade and all kinds of innovation. And these, as I've said, come to a large extent via the Crusades. So the idea of long-distance transfers of credit, systems of accounting that rely on new ways of thinking about numbers, the idea of central markets, and the idea of taking some of these new commodities, moving them around the world in order to generate continually increasing returns. These things either come from or are generated in this really fertile process of transferring those ideas that come from the Middle East. And of course, Western Europe will make something new of them, especially after 1492 and the encounter with the New World. But it's important to remember that this period from the start of the Crusades to the discovery of the New World is a period in which the exchange between Asia and the Middle East and Europe helps to lay the groundwork for a new birth of long-distance trade, and then beyond that, a new kind of economic formation.